Welcome back to 83 Till Infinity. This is Disco Trek, our Star Trek Discovery podcast. Just wanted to make sure I got the show right. Today we're going to be talking about episode 6 of season 3. The title was Scavengers. It was directed by Douglas Amikowski and written by Ann Kofel Saunders. I'm Bert.
I'm Alex.
And I'm the Invisible Man.
Oh, invisible.
No, my camera doesn't work. I'm Jesse.
Invisible insignia. All right. Why don't we do a quick synopsis of the episode? Jesse, you want to tell us what happened?
Sure. In this week's episode, the crew did things that nobody cared about. It was great. Why should we care about this show? Because it's on TV, apparently. No. So this week, the Discovery they joined the Future Federation. They got their ship retrofitted. I like how they just kind of disappeared part of the ship. So they get their ship turned into a future ship, kind of, with floating nacelles. And then they're about to go off on their first mission when Michael Burnham turns to her old ways of mutineering and decides to go off and save her would-be boyfriend, Book.
Yeah.
With the help of her Terran pal, Philippa Georgia.
Empress Philippa Georgia.
I had that back.
Yeah,
I know. I had that backwards.
Yeah.
So they run off. They go to a planet that has scrapyards and stuff, and Book is a slave there, and they rescue him, of course. And then they go back, but this time, there's consequences for her. She gets demoted. She's no longer the number one. There's the whole recap.
Yeah. Pretty much it.
You think mutineering would get you more than a slight demotion to science officer?
Yeah, chief science officer.
But apparently, chief science officer, yeah. But apparently they're just kind of like, their nerves are just kind of, they're sort of over it now, and they're just used to her mutineering.
Yeah.
So that's what she's going to do. She's going to mutiny every week.
Yeah, mutiny is going to mutiny.
Next week, they're taking away her holodeck privileges.
After
Another mutiny, Michael?
She'll
come
punch
on.
Saru in the face and take over the ship. She'll knock him out cold, take over the ship, start a war. They'll take away your holodeck privileges.
Saru's a terrible captain. Yeah, I think that was when the Admiral was like, you know what? When Saru's like, she's mutinied, and the Admiral's like, well, you're going to have to figure out a punishment. That was a test, Saru, and you failed.
So when that scene was happening and he's like, you got to punish her, he turns around, and I thought, Jesse knows what the perfect punishment is for this. It's a dinner party, and Michael needs to host it, and it needs to go perfectly, and that's her punishment.
Yeah, that's an episode. That's a fun episode too. Michael's dinner party.
Michael's dinner party.
Bert usually does this, but who wants to get Bert? Why don't you start by volunteering your score for this?
Let's go to scores.
This humdinger of an episode.
I give this one a 5.
Ooh, ouch.
5 out of 10.
Ouch.
Yeah. I don't know why I need to see most of this. And, most of the things that I actually felt like I should have seen never happened in the episode. I felt like if there was an episode before this one where they explained all of the, readjusting to being in future fleet, 1,000 years in the future and meeting all of the cool future Starfleet characters, in 10 Forward or wherever, who are getting to know the characters that we know from Discovery and the super interesting interactions, and then establishing, where they fall in the Starfleet hierarchy now that they've reintroduced themselves. And then we go to their first sort of mission. Then I would have said, oh, interesting episode. Now we get to see what they're doing. But they just missed it all. I mean, all of the interesting things, you go to the future and you skip all of the future stuff. You just do the exact same thing you were doing previously with slightly different looking aliens. I don't know. It was an episode of television.
Yep, I think that's very fair. I mean, I gave it a 7, which is a 1 thumb up, because but it could also be a 5 or a 6, because I think my grading system isn't as granular as it could be. I think that they didn't do a lot of science fiction, so that's not great for me. But I did enjoy the landing sequence, just looking at the planet and the ships exploding and getting hit by stuff. That gives me so much Michael Bay points that I cranked it up a notch. And of course, minus 100 points for the thing that I said, 5-6 weeks ago. I mean, it was so obviously telegraphed, and I hated it, and I hated watching it happen. And of course, the forced love interest between our protagonist and anybody else. And I hated watching it, so that's -10. So final score -3. Jesse.
He had coveted Michael Burnham for himself, and now he's just upset. I agree with Alex. It was a terrible episode. I hate the forced love. There's no reason why those two people should be in love. It's a made up storyline to, I don't know, have something happen on screen. I would give it a 1 out of 10. And you know what?
So 2 thumbs down. 2 thumbs down. Like very serious.
No thumbs left.
I just feel like
the mob took them.
And the thing is that when you look at the component parts of this episode, it should be. Here's the problem with this show: it should be interesting, right? This should be an interesting episode. Hey, they're joining. They're turning their ship into a future ship. Like they've eliminated the link now between the hull and the nacelles. All these cool things that future ships get, and also they're going to a like slave. Industrial slavery planet where there's like a crime syndicate that's rivaling the Federation in strength. I forget what it's called again.
Orion Syndicate.
Yeah, the Orion Syndicate. So you have like a crime like you have things have gotten so bad in the galaxy that a crime syndicate's kind of taken like stepped into the power vacuum. This should be an interesting episode.
Yeah.
Right. And instead, I had to struggle to pay attention to it.
Yeah.
And again, this is the contrast between what CBS is doing with Star Trek and what Disney is doing with Star Wars. And you think, like, if the Mandalorian can take transporting a frog lady with her eggs to her home, to a world so that she can like have them fertilized by her husband, and they can make that episode like riveting, and you can't turn what's happening to the Discovery crew into something that holds my attention for 44 minutes. Then you don't deserve to be a writer.
Yeah, I agree. Why don't we go to episode chat? Yeah, we'll talk about our points. I think we're probably gonna have some overlap. So if somebody else's point is the same as one of yours, we can just sort of smash those together and add our points together on that same topic.
Sure.
How about you, Alex? You want to go first?
Sure, I'll go first. So I think the first thing I want to talk about is just our crazy conspiracy interesting thoughts. It's around 7:52. Okay. It's Philippa and Michael are chatting, and something interesting is happening in this scene, and it's something that we've seen it before. So the one cool science fiction thing, as I want to talk about every time, I want to talk about science fiction. And the cool thing that they seem to be telegraphing here is another mirror parallel universe kind of thing that's happening. When we've seen Philippa a few times now, and Michael as well, they are talking and they have a mirror image somewhere on screen as well. And I don't know if that's supposed to sort of like telling us about there's, a parallel universe thing happening or a mirror universe thing happening. But it is something that I find interesting. I think it's interesting to see, especially Philippa, who has, of course, like one of the cooler Bizarro characters on the thing.
Yeah.
Michael's less cool Bizarro. Tilly, less cool Bizarro too. But the idea that there is still mirror stuff to talk about, and that is still stuff that's unexplored. And maybe that's playing into why we're having Philippa, fall over so frequently now. It might not just be a PTSD thing. It could be, there's too many versions of her in this universe. There's too much, that there's some crossover between the Philippas, or anything. I just like saw that, and it reminded me that we've seen this a few times now, and I guess I'm just hoping that there is some interesting science fiction thing to talk about here.
No, that's a really good catch. I don't see
the catch. What's the catch?
On the left side there. So if you're looking at this, if you're looking at the screen around 7:53 in the episode, you have on the far right Philippa, who's facing the camera, and then in the center, and it's just sort of like a mid shot, shoulders up. In the center, you have the back of Michael Burnham facing.
No, I can see that.
And then on the left, you have a mirror image of Giorgio. So she's in some sort of window. So you see her speaking on one side on the far right, but then you see her, the exact same character again on the left. And the mirror image is sort of partially faded out. It's a little bit higher contrast. And so, like, I guess you could take it, if it was on its face, if this was some normal drama, you could just say this was an interesting, framing. The director of photography came up with a cool looking shot, but seeing how there is, the history and the bizarro universe that she's come from, it probably suggests that there are some multiverse shenanigans going on, and that's actually really a cool point. Like it could be the entire thought that they lobotomized her, or the guy with the glasses did something to her because he's anti-Terran, could be a red herring, and it could be something that's a natural result of her being out of her universe for such a long time. Like, who knows?
Yeah, I think mirrors have frequently been used to sort of try and, when characters need to talk to themselves, when characters need to talk to schisms of themselves. And so I just thought it was an interesting thing. But like you said, Bert, it could just be the director of photography was like, hey, it'd be a cool shot.
Yeah, but I think, to be honest, I think you're right, though. I feel like the DP would have had to have known some of the history of the show. So setting this shot up accidentally would be pretty silly. So
I don't think it was accidental.
Yeah, I feel like it must be.
Has anyone else pointed it out online?
Not that I've seen.
Haven't looked. Okay, so the next thing I wanted to talk about is more in the fun sphere. So, how do you feel about everyone in Starfleet calling the first officer rank number 1?
Mm-hmm.
Like it feels like it's taken away from the cool lingo that TNG had.
Yeah.
It's not the actual name of the rank. Like it's so I don't know. Like, do you think this is a universal translator thing happening, or do you think that everyone heard Picard say it, and so now they think it's really cool?
Well, Pike said it first. I don't want to split hairs with you.
No, you're right.
Yeah. Sorry. It's in the birdcage.
What do you think, Jesse? Is this like
the birdcage? The cage. Sorry.
Is this like?
I watched the birdcage the other week with Rob Williams and
So what do you think? Is this a cool lingo thing? Is this just like it's always been this way, and it never was the popular thing?
It clearly hasn't always been this way. Until now, the only two people who did it were Pike and Picard.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And now literally everyone, Saru, Admiral, one of the security officers says it too. Everybody says it. So, I mean, I don't know. I think it was just a fun thing. What do you think, Bert?
Yeah, I agree. I think it was colloquialism, or some term that maybe some captains used, but I do think that it's morphed into, and not necessarily in universe, but among the writers, I suppose, a shorthand for the rank or the posting, and they, I guess, have failed to separate the two. Because I mean, I would understand it if Saru said it, because Pike said it, and so that he sort of picked it up from there. But I think to have the exact same colloquialism 1,000 years in the future without it becoming the actual official name for the rank, that's a little bit more difficult for me to believe.
Yeah, I don't know. To me, I think it would be cool if they just made up their own thing. I don't know. I like when everyone has like you said, colloquialisms. It's just nice when people don't call each other by their rank or by their last names. They call themselves by cool nicknames. I think it adds a layer to the universe
if they sound cool.
Right.
I mean, if your nickname for somebody is JL, then
JL is not as cool
never
as
landed right.
Dank Ferrick.
It never landed very well.
But I mean, again, this is sort of like, we've talked about this before, but this is one of the things that is missing from this show, is the effort from the writers to fill out their world and make it believable is missing, right? Like, you have Saru, first alien, captain of a show vessel, right? Like, he's captain of the vessel that is the show's namesake, and he puts none of his culture from his planet into his captaincy. You could he could at the very least have served, food from his home world at his dinner party. They didn't bother with that. He could have said, come up with some, story about the ancient religion on his planet where, the kings always had a blah, 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 and they would call them whatever. And it was the most trusted advisor, and they would die before they would question that person's, loyal advice to them. And they called them X. And that's what I'm going to call you instead of, first officer, because I trust you that much. Like, that would have been interesting, fill out the world a little bit. But no, just number one. He's just a tall guy. He's a tall guy. Yeah.
He is really tall. And the prosthetics look really cool and his shoes look cool. But I agree. Like there's an ambience missing.
Yeah.
But on the other side of that, the one thing that they're doing very well, Bert, if you want to go to, it's about 1420. It's when they have reached the slave scavenger planet.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's perfect there. Like that's still, I mean,
oh yeah.
I wrote down when I was watching it, I'm like, this is one of the most beautiful, like just one of the most beautiful ship landing science fiction. The ships, the lens flares, the planet, it just looks, and the ambience is just so perfect. And I know that these shots are very expensive and but I would love if we get more stuff like this because it really helps me get to the world.
No, I agree. I to be honest, I think that the CGI to me is one of the high points of this show. Like the as far as the money that they've spent on special effects, it's all been well done. I, to be honest, wish that they would spend less money on special effects and more money, perhaps, if that's what's missing, on writing. It's a fantastic establishing shot. And then when they all go down, that's also, a fantastic action sequence. It's just the stuff in between that's lacking a little bit. Like this planet, for instance. This planet houses, tons and tons and tons of salvage, a lot of it from ships. Like she just happened to land on some random part and stuck her hand in a bin and came up with, old Starfleet insignia. That's interesting. Like how much of it is on this planet if you can just stick your hand in a bin and find one? And where did they get it from? Who are the people who live here? What's the name of their race? Why are they all scavengers? Like something like, it just, I don't know. I just wish that they gave me more about the worlds. Everybody is just a prop to sort of further this whatever plot line between Michael, Philippa, and Book, and it really doesn't matter what happens to them, it seems, or you're not ever really given any reason to have any interest or to actually remember them, which is a little bit sad to me.
Yeah. I mean, it's so boring. The whole thing is so boring. It's a beautiful, boring thing.
That's very fair.
They've done a great job. I mean, I think Bert, was this filmed in your neck of the woods? That looks like the steel mill in Hamilton.
It does look like Hamilton.
I think it is filmed in, this episode was filmed in Hamilton. But like when you watch this, it looks great. Everything looks perfect. And it's just, I just don't care. And even to contrast this with Star Trek Picard, a show which I had a lot of complaints about. I wasn't bored when I watched Picard. I hated it. I was very, very critical of a lot of stuff. But you know what? Like at the end of the day, I was never bored watching an episode of Picard. And at the, to be fair, at the end, it left me with a bit. It gave me some feels. I did feel. It felt Star Trek-y at the end. It used the music, that sort of like emotive, the music that I remember from, my childhood. And it was deeply flawed, but it still felt like at the end, you kind of got like the feelings you wanted to get from it. This show just feels like watching a moth fly around a light. I don't care. And it's boring.
But it's an 8K. It's a high resolution
an 8K,
moth.
And that moth it's perfectly rendered. Yeah.
No, that's fair. All right, so the last thing I'll talk about is maybe my negative of the week, which we already talked about briefly. You want to go to like 40, 55-ish.
Yeah.
It lasts like a minute, so you can probably hit it anywhere from around there. But for our listeners, it is Michael and Book kissing. And
kissing. And kissing.
It's... Oh my god. It's
and the music.
there is I counted 4 camera shots, like, and then they do a spin.
Yep, there's a camera move and 360 around them kissing. Yeah.
Yep. There's a 360, there's 3 camera shots before that, and then they do a 360 kiss. Okay, so now for my actual discussion and thoughts. I mean, my entire life, I have always hated love interests, and I'm probably not going to look good in the comment section, but I hate it. I hate it in fantasy and science fiction, my favorite genres. It always feels forced. It always feels like it's written by men. It never feels authentic. It never feels like they're people that actually would like each other. Or it never feels genuine in a way that it feels so disingenuous to the characters that these people are creating.
Yeah.
In a way that really, really, really cheapens the character. But my question, Jesse, so is this the first time they're kissing?
In a year?
Oh. It's the first time with emotion. I mean, they've hooked up before. I mean, they spent a lot of time on that ship.
Right.
You know. But yeah, I think this is the first time. I mean, like the way she looks at him, you can tell it's supposed to, or the way they asked her to look at him. Mm-hmm. She did her best. She really did her best to act this out. Because she kind of carries the whole kiss moment. He doesn't, like, they kind of don't show.
Yeah.
All right, I think that's fair. All right, so my last thought, are they going to be in a relationship? Is Book going to be on the crew? My thought is that they are going to keep Book around. I don't think he's going to technically join the crew. I think the insubordination is probably going to set back Michael's clear plans to integrate him into her new life. Bert, what do you think?
I'm sorry to say, but he's not going anywhere. This show, it's called Star Trek Discovery, and this is one of my sort of general points, and I guess this is pertinent, so I'll just sort of mention it here. Nothing happens on this show without Michael Burnham. This is Star Trek Michael Burnham. The Discovery just happens to be the ship that she's on at the moment. If she were on another ship, then it would be called Star Trek Other Ship. Like, none of the other characters, none of the other plot lines matter unless they interact with Michael Burnham. So, you know, as long as they want her to have a love interest, he'll be around. If they decide at some point that it would be dramatic or would be good for the plot that, you know, the love interest die, then he'll die. But he's not going anywhere for now. And even if he goes somewhere, then we'll have flashback scenes, or she'll have memory scenes, or you know, there'll be something. They'll have discussions about how she's pining for her boyfriend.
There'll be a Culber-esque writing campaign, and he'll come back to the mycelial network.
Like he's not going anywhere. And I don't think this love interest is going anywhere because the show is about Michael Burnham. It's not about Discovery. Yeah.
No,
well, this show's not certainly going anywhere, Bert. I mean, I can tell you that right now. This is going nowhere fast.
Yeah, I think that critique is probably the one that stings the most as a lover of Star Trek. Is that, like, obviously TNG, like, all of them have a couple of good characters and then a couple characters you hate, and that's subjective. But this one, it's really hard to see it as anything other than Michael Burnham does stuff, and then there's a B plot that is like 5 minutes of the episode, which is really the main important thing, and then Michael Burnham does something for 55 minutes.
Yeah,
it feels like you said, the Michael Burnham show, and I want to like the other characters, and I really just don't.
Yeah, and I mean,
I think.
Go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, like, I think the reason that we don't like a lot of the characters is, as Jesse alluded to as well, we don't have enough time with them. We're not building enough relationships with all of these characters. We're just watching Michael Burnham continue to be the most mutineerous, most outsider, high-ranking person ever, and we have to put up with it.
Yeah, she's the cowboy of cowboys, and
She is.
no
She's
one
the
can
cowboy,
stop
yeah.
her. Not in the past, not in the future. Michael Burnham destroys all.
She
Yeah.
will remember that episode. There's a great TNG episode. It's actually one of my favorites. I don't know. It doesn't usually make top 10 lists, but it's the one, I forget the name, but it's the one where Picard, it's after the Inner Light, and he meets the astronomy person who's on the ship.
Oh, yes, I recall.
And she has like a cool little fold out keyboard. He has his flute. They really hit it off. You know, I'm sure Beverly was horrified when she watches this. She's just like, damn, Beverly, you had your chance.
So was Wesley,
Girl, you didn't
of
get
course.
your claws in to JL. But anyway, he's done that a couple times where he's waved a girlfriend right under Beverly's nose. Like when he brings Vash onto the ship,
Yeah,
and he's
yeah,
like,
absolutely.
Beverly, why don't you take my girlfriend for a tour?
Yeah, she's a
She looks,
swashbuckler.
she even looks visibly hurt.
Yeah,
It's
she's basically
awful.
Lara Croft. Way better than
Yeah.
you.
What do you think, Beverly? All right, we'll just put you on the back burner for now. You're not going anywhere, except in season 2. Anyway, but there's, but it's a great contrast where this is a Starfleet officer. Jean-Luc Picard is a Starfleet officer, and he sends her to her death. She does not die. He orders her to stay on the planet to keep the operation going to save the planet. I forget what they're doing now. My memory is terrible. But there's lava and fire or something. But it's pretty clear they think everyone's going to die. He orders her to stay there, the woman that he is romantically involved with.
Yeah.
And it hurts him so much that he goes and sits in his room and like stares at the wall. But he doesn't waver. He doesn't change his mind. He doesn't go down to the planet. Michael Burnham is the worst Starfleet officer in the world. My boyfriend's missing and his cat's here. And the captain's like, well, we're not going. Like that's that. And she's like, no, screw it.
Yeah.
He doesn't even have a fold out piano. Right? They did not jam in a Jeffries tube. I mean, yeah, they spent a year together, so I'm sure it's different than a guy than the lady that Picard knew for a week. But still, you know what I mean? Like this is and you're telling us this. This is what you're saying is acceptable. She is the protagonist. So you're saying, look, the dereliction of duty in favor of personal interests is fine. As long as it's for love and there's 25 cameras rotating around you while you kiss. I mean, it's just, to me, like anyone who says, no, this show is futurism, this is what Star Trek's about. Screw you, you idiot. Because this is not like, this is showing you a Starfleet. No wonder Starfleet collapsed. If this is what it was made of, it deserved to collapse. I mean, it's just one of those things where you're like, this is telling you that it's okay to just screw off on your friends as long as something better is out there for you.
Yeah, I mean,
And on that point, it just makes me so mad. There's a point where I forget where the actual moment is, because you know what, it popped into my head, but I didn't write it down, and I know it's not my turn. But there's a point where she kind of like suggests to Saru that maybe the Federation isn't all that important anymore.
It actually, that was one of the things I was going to talk about, but turned out.
Oh,
Yeah.
then go ahead and talk about it. Yeah, I've just cheated
it was
up
super
for you.
briefly. Is the vulnerable? I just didn't like how that was like framed, like the vulnerable Federation kind of idea. Like, oh, they're so fragile that and maybe if we did it my way, like things would be better.
Yeah.
And it's just absurd to even think about.
yeah, I'm more important than the Federation. But
Yeah,
again,
exactly.
this is Star Trek Burnham, so she kind of is, right?
Yeah, well, just to finish on that point about her sort of suggesting that we don't need the Federation. I think this is an episode where they go to a planet that's enslaving people, that's being run by a galactic crime syndicate.
Yeah,
Right.
And you think that maybe you should just do things your way. It's not, you know what I mean? Like, and maybe this whole thing isn't that important. Arguably, you're wrong. Because apparently nobody's policing anything, and you've got a crime syndicate that is rivaling what used to be the galaxy's police force.
Yeah.
Right. That's like her saying like, yeah, everything's burning down, but what's so wrong with this?
So the one thing that I wanted to say that I've seen sort of bandied about is that, this Star Trek is, reflects our times because of the sort of self-obsessed nature of sort of the characters and the bad guys as well. Everybody's thinks that they're, a man or woman or whatever of destiny, and that they're the only person or thing that matters. And I think, if that's what they're trying to get across, that people are, solipsists, and they think the only people in the universe that matter are themselves. Then I guess sure the best, I guess, example of that is the main character of the show, which is again, the show has a main character. It's this is a departure as much as Captain Picard got a lot of screen time. He was not, you couldn't say he was the main character. Like, they had a main cast. This show has a main character and a supporting cast.
Yeah. True.
And
he's the main character of his new show, but
yeah,
he definitely is.
And they named that one after
I liked him
right?
better as one of the cast, I think.
Me too.
And they could have just named this one after her. But I guess people would have been upset if they had come out, I guess, at the beginning and said,
Star Trek.
This is Star Trek Michael or Star Trek Burnham.
That would have, oh man, you can see, they probably would have got more views though. Like, if you're talking about clickbait, if you had called it Star Trek Michael and then have her on the front, people would be lining up on the Reddit.
Oh yeah. Burn it down. Burn it with
literally
the fire.
burn it.
Yeah.
And I really liked the Michael Burnham character. I liked until today, right? I liked everything about her. And then to me, this actually kind of ruined it for me. I was like, this is a selfish person.
Right.
Who I like, again, it's all about her, and she's right, and she knows it. And it's like, she's the only person who's smart enough to figure anything out. And it's like, oh yeah, if you're so smart, then why aren't you captain? Like, if you're so smart, then like, you know what I mean? And it's like, it's the same thing with the Battle of the Binary Stars. Like, if you go back to the pilot episode, right? She knew everything. She was smarter than everybody else. And you can say, sure, she was right, but this is not how you handle things. And it's okay for her to make that mistake once when you're on the brink of a galactic war with the Klingons. And she makes that mistake. And I liked that was sort of like, this is somebody who is a hothead, right? But I thought like it was sort of like an interesting development that she had kind of learned her lesson, and she had matured so much to the point where everyone was like, oh, maybe she'll be the captain or this or that, right? And now it's just like, no, she's matured not at all. I don't know.
I hear you. And actually, you know what? On that point, I think it's a really interesting thing to think about. If she was captain, and the admiral had been like, like, she's like, this is more important than sitting around in case you need me to do something. That actually sounds like something a captain would do, like the overriding, as opposed to insubordination. It seems more, I don't know, to me, like if she was actually in charge and making these decisions, they seem less cavalier in a way. I don't know if you guys have that sort of same impression.
So I have a few points then of my own. Sorry, I kind of took over Alex's last point. So number one, let's go to 1547 and look at the one thing I liked from the episode.
Ooh, the salvage. There was some cool stuff in there.
Yeah, there was at the 1547 mark. This is the best. This is the only good. I think.
Okay.
It's somewhere around there. I thought it was right about there.
Okay.
These ships are old as dirt. There's plenty of good scrap in them. Here.
Oh yeah, here it is.
Boom! There we go.
Didn't exist in that era. Now this has all its original parts.
That's the end of it. No,
Yeah.
I just the TNG phaser, and it's the only good thing about the episode. And but the only thing is, I wonder if that's like, if there's like a subtle message there where they're like, look, this is where TNG belongs. I'm gonna scrap you.
Yes, that's what the writers are saying.
And I'm like, oh, those are fighting woods.
Yeah.
But maybe that's what they're trying to tell us. And in that case, we'll just see who ends up on the scrap heap. Discovery writers.
Yeah. That's pretty observant. Like, I never really thought of that. The thing that it struck me is, how much of this salvage do they have? Like, do they just
Yeah.
Go and find ships that exploded during the burn and just scoop everything up, or
Yeah.
Ostensibly, that phaser was in service before the burn, because that's the Type 2 phaser from season 3 onwards. It doesn't exist in season 1 and 2. So that Type 2 phaser shouldn't exist when the burn happens, right? There shouldn't be one of those. That would be a 400-year-old antique when the burn happens, probably, right? Like that would be something that belongs in a collector's case somewhere. It's not like an active service thing. So, I think, maybe this is a subtle dig at people who liked the golden era of Star Trek, as I shall hitherto refer to it. If you're a fan of the original series and the subsequent movies, you're an idiot. And if you like this better, you're an idiot. Everyone knows that TNG to Voyager is the golden era. And I'll fight anyone who disagrees with me.
What about Enterprise? No Enterprise?
Actually, I'll include Enterprise because it's just the whole series is just a TNG episode. And it closes with the Enterprise D flying away. So I consider it a TNG episode.
Yeah.
So I'm including Enterprise, the whole of the show in the Next Generation. It's Riker binged it on the holodeck. He and Troy got mad once because he cheated on her a little bit. He went ahead a couple of episodes, and she was like, "You were supposed to wait for me, Will." Yeah, so there's the one thing I liked about the episode is the phaser. I think, I did like, well, this is just another cool thing. I really did like, I think it's around the 19-minute mark, and this is not really a point. I love the way the guy's head explodes. This is that whole sequence where they're like, you stole water.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was I always like when bad guys are bad. When they make you not like them. And kaboom. And he keeps kind of running after, which I like, that his body just kind of goes for a second.
Yeah.
I would have loved to have seen it fall down. But aside from that, pretty fun way to torture your prisoners. But here's my question on this. I like the idea of a crime syndicate running a planet that enslaves people. Why do you need slaves 900 years in the future?
Yeah.
There's robots everywhere.
Robots.
There's holographic people. Why is human labor more efficient than the myriad of alternatives you should have? You know what I mean? It's just one of those things where it's like, this is stupid. And I feel like if it was good science fiction, they'd find a way to make it interesting, or even the original series had episodes where they were like, oh, let's pose interesting questions. What would it be like? To me, those are the best Star Trek episodes. What would happen if? Discovery never asks those questions.
Yeah. It's action. It's an action show.
Yeah.
I think that's a good point. I think the answer, it doesn't actually take a lot to explain why they need slaves. You just need one throwaway line where a writer has put the effort in to be like, this thing, the drones are not good at doing this one thing, and that's why we have these 100 slaves to pull dilithium out of a dilithium. Like it's something that we don't have drones to do. People need to do it, and it specifically reminds me of a few sort of things that we have in the past had the technology to do, and we still used people. Yeah, because we were lazy,
exactly.
Or because it was punitive. But that's all you need to say. Just come out and say and I mean he did say something about they all owe him owe her money, but that's not enough for me. I agree with you, Jesse. I think that it's just not imaginative enough. And if we're going to talk about futurism, something that Star Trek inspired me my whole life with these futuristic what ifs. This does not answer a what if. This just says evil people have slaves. And that's a really good way to telegraph their evil. Yeah.
They could have used this to set the tone so well. You could just come up with something, off the top of your head. The specific components that they're working with include some element within them that is corrosive to anything that it touches. And the robots or androids or whatever they use are expensive. So they get them to do the important work, and stuff that could, corrode important material or technology, they get these slaves to do because they're interchangeable. They're worthless, and plus they're being punished. Like you can come up with a ton of stuff to look how inhuman these slavers are. We gotta stop the Orion Syndicate, but no, they just
you could just
slaves.
be like, you could just have a thing where it's like, yeah, it's a prison. We've got them in the prison because we're trying to extract information from them or value from them, and we're going to execute them or something. Like, there's other things you can do that would be believable for why Book is being imprisoned here that doesn't involve slavery, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like in a time when, like, if the Orion Syndicate is sort of like rivaling the Federation seems to have a lot of holographic workers.
Mm-hmm.
Like a ton of them.
Mm-hmm.
You gotta feel like for something that's labor intensive like this, they might be able to afford the same thing.
Right.
Yeah. So that wasn't great.
Yeah.
Okay. Biggest thing I hated. It's at the 25-minute mark, and it's a humdinger, folks. Tilly is the worst person in the world, and just watch the scene first. Watch what this stupid turd burger says.
All we have endured together. This feeling would never return.
Sir, you know, Michael is one of the people that I love most in this world, but
Bullshit.
she made a choice, and now because of that, you don't have one. You have to tell the Admiral.
I hope she drowns Tilly in a toilet. This is one of those things where it's like she doesn't even hesitate in a visible way.
Mm-hmm.
Saru's just, and so first things first. Why did Saru ask her?
Yeah.
The Ensign again.
That would be like to use the TNG analogy. Will Riker decides to go off and save Deanna Troi from something, basically, doing something mutinous, and Picard turns and he's like, Wesley, what do you think I should do?
Yeah.
He's like, gee willikers, Captain Picard, I don't know.
Yeah, exactly.
Willikers,
why don't you
no
court-martial him?
But
He
here's the
didn't
thing.
leave you a choice.
Here's the thing. I think that because if you remember, there's a scene earlier in the episode where Tilly is giving orders. She's using the new holographic interface. She is clearly one of the best attuned people on the ship so far to the new technology. She adapted really well to it. I think that Tilly is going to be the new first officer.
I hate even the suggestion of that. I hate it so much.
Oh, it sounds so real, though. It sounds so...
It absolutely... What I was thinking when she was doing this throwing under the bus, I was like, she's gunning for a command position.
Yeah.
Like, this is ridiculous. And I've said this every week, and I will say it again. I want to not hate Tilly. I really do. And I'm struggling so hard. Because I just cannot stand her, and I want to. So I'm again this week 5 in a row where I'm going to say I don't hate her yet, but I mean I don't know what else she could possibly do at this point.
And I mean, so here's another thing about Tilly that's crazy, and it's not really just Tilly. It's just because this is the Michael Burnham show, that it's kind of absurd when you think about it as an actual Star Trek show, but less if you think about it as, a show about a character. Like if the show were named Michael Burnham, it wouldn't be so absurd, but because it's Star Trek, it is. The real reason that Tilly's character is around and, involved in all these scenes is because she's Michael Burnham's friend. It's because she was Michael Burnham's bunk, and they had that sort of dialogue relationship between the two of them. And because the show has so few characters and they all have to interact directly with Michael in order to stay on the show, she's still here. But aside from that, the character doesn't even really exist. Like if Michael Burnham had bunked with, somebody else, then that other person would probably be here right now. There is nothing to suggest to the audience that this character is here, of their own merit. They served for just as long as everybody else and got the experience and blah, blah, blah. No, it's just that, everybody who is around Michael has to be on the bridge because that's where she is, or they have to be in engineering because that's where she goes. And so Tilly's a prodigy. Like it's just the small world ridiculousness.
I hate it for so many other reasons. I mean, if they like, again, I like that analogy. Does Tilly exist when Michael's not in the room? Maybe not. She just stops existing. But you know, like the thing too is it's just I don't know, like this is why like this I called Killy a Terran. A Karen. A Karen.
Yeah.
Not a Terran, but they're the same thing. You know, like I could see now after this, I'm like, yeah, look at this white lady throws a black lady under the bus so she can get her job. Such a Karen move. She's calling people at barbecues. She's like, look, they didn't give you a choice, Saru. That barbecue was too loud. Those kids were having too much fun. This is a quiet street.
Yeah, this is a good neighborhood.
I just everything about her is so offensive, and I feel bad for the actress. This is not the actress's fault.
Oh, it's absolutely not. You're right. She's being directed to do this. Yeah,
I have the utmost respect for this actress. I think does an amazing job. I have this is not this actress's fault. It's you know, I didn't mind Tilly in season 1 when she was like Michael Burnham's like bunkmate, and it made sense that we were getting sort of that lower decks view from somebody, you know, by way of the fact that they were being bunked with Michael Burnham. And I mean, I thought that was an interesting feature in the first season, and then they just were like, hey, people in the fandom. And I'm assuming it's probably like white female fans that like Tilly because she's them. I feel like bald people are underrepresented in this show. That's why TNG is my favorite. But you know, I mean, like I'm sure she does represent a certain segment of the fandom now, and they've really invested in making Tilly something different. And I just think like they're not really being thoughtful about it, and I think they're really making her awful. Like I hate I like the Adira. Like I really like Adira. I think Adira is a cool character. I think Adira makes sense as someone who is actually like a genius and has, you know, despite the fact that she's like 16, she's earning her place. She just fixed Stamets' arms. Yeah, like he doesn't have to have implants now to do the spore drive. Here is a child prodigy who has demonstrated, I think, a level of maturity that you would expect from a Starfleet officer. A level of decorum you would expect from a Starfleet officer, and is also a genius and interesting, and I think feels like a proper Star Trek character.
Yeah. Don't forget she's a trill with the symbiote.
Yep. Exactly. Yeah. I mean, like, so I just feel like, you know, but she was mature before she accessed the symbiote's memories. But to outside people, let's just agree that Adira's boyfriend must seem like a delusion. Right? I mean, hey, teenage girl, who are you talking to? My ghost boyfriend? He's from Canada.
He lives inside me.
He's a trill and he lives inside me, and he plays the cello, and he's right beside me right now looking at me, and he has blue hair. And everyone's like, sure, Adira. Yeah, you've got a boyfriend. Good for you. Right. It reminds me of something that I don't know if you guys watch Bob's Burgers, but the Tina Belcher character.
Yeah, it does. No, I hear you.
You know the episode where she has the ghost boyfriend and is in the box, Jeff? It's that episode. To everyone else, I mean, we know Gray is really there talking to Adira, but to everybody else, I mean, she must just look like that's the girl that says she has the ghost boyfriend.
Yeah, she's a genius otherwise, but
this is my boyfriend Gray. He's a ghost. Anyway,
on that point, I just want to super quick talk about like the 180 Stamets did this episode, and he's like all of a sudden a nice nurturing human.
Space dad,
yeah, and he's like, you know what, this Adira is amazing, which is true, and he's like, you know what, like her liking me makes me feel good, and like I thought it was a very strange 180 for the character. I was totally happy for him to be a D-bag the whole series, because you know what? Some people, and I'm like, as an engineer with engineering friends and the deal with engineers all the time, you know who are often D-bags? Engineers. So like it was totally fine for his character to be a D-bag. And now that Adira is here, he's all of a sudden fixed in like one conversation. It was I thought it was very fast, and I did not like it.
I hope they don't change him. I mean, I hope this is just like a writing mistake where they were like, oh, someone needs to come in. Oh, you know what? Stamets makes sense because he had that whole thing where Dr. Culber was appearing to him as a ghost. So, you know, I guess it kind of makes sense that they would be friends. I mean, I'm okay for those two to be friends, especially because she's helped him now and everything. I don't want him to stop being a jerk because Stamets is one of the few characters beyond, Michael, Saru, and Tilly that I feel has been fleshed out, right?
Yeah, I know.
And I really like the Stamets character. Like, I think he's one of my favorite engineers. I really like, and I don't want them to change it.
Yeah, I'm hoping. I do think that his character is going to change. This is going to be part of his growth arc. I am hoping that they at least limit his change to her, right? Like, so he becomes like the Hound. He hates everybody and everything still, and thinks that everybody's an idiot except for her, and I guess Culper.
I would love that.
Like,
that would be great.
Like, and I mean, it makes,
to be fair, she is a genius.
Yeah,
she
exactly.
likes talent.
I
Like,
think
what are you
that's
gonna do?
part of it,
Like,
right?
No, yeah, she's got raw talent.
So I think if he acknowledges her as a genius and B, a person who he feels some sort of paternal instinct toward, but everybody else is still a fool who should not waste his time, then I think I'd like to see that dynamic. I
want a scene now where like they're in the lunchroom and he's like, "Oh, you're smart. You can sit at the smart kids table now with your." And
it's
then,
just
like,
the two of
he
us.
Like walks by Tilly's table and like knocks her tray off it. And he's like, "Oops."
Yeah, that's exactly the kind of thing he would do.
It's not gonna happen.
No, no, I don't think so.
All right, Bert. Let's go to your points.
Okay, sure. So my general point, so the sort of the non-time-stamped one, was the one that we talked about earlier. Is that the plot doesn't move forward without Michael Burnham ever. This is her show, and it doesn't matter really what's going on. The other characters, like, you guys know the what's it called, the Bechdel test.
Yep. It's one of my favorite things to do.
I think you could have a similar test on this show where you could ask, are any...
What's the test?
The Bechdel test is like, for good, well-written female characters, you look at whether there are a female character in a dialogue with another female character where they're talking about something that is not a male character.
Yeah. And to be clear, it's supposed to be the lowest possible bar.
Yeah.
So it should never, ever be failed.
Yeah.
It's one of those, like, as a joke in art school kind of thing. But hilariously, it fails frequently.
Yeah.
Let's go on. Sorry.
I think you could do the same thing in this show. But if you replace a male character with Michael Burnham and a female character and another female character with literally any other character on the show. Are there any characters who are, members of the Discovery staff who are in dialogue with one another, who are not speaking directly about Michael Burnham or about something that Michael Burnham is doing or going to save them from or did to them? They're always talking about Michael Burnham or what Michael Burnham did, what she's about to do, how she's going to save them, how she ruined, their plans. Like, it's too Michael Burnham centered for me. Like, it's almost like a Schwarzenegger movie or a Stallone movie where, it's Rambo and nobody cares what Rambo's, buddy's name is or the other people in his squad because the show is about Rambo. And it's getting sort of grating, to be honest. And it's hard for me to care about anybody else when I know that their only reason for being on the show is to be, Michael Burnham plot, devices.
It's funny because, and it was better before. Like, I did kind of like that Michael Burnham was the main character in the first, especially in the first season. I thought it worked. It was an interesting way to show the view of the ship from, right? I thought it was fun that they tried it that way. It's gotten sillier over time. And now she's basically saving the galaxy, and that's something I like that in Star Trek, Star Wars. That's fine. It's fine for Rey to save the galaxy. It's not fine to bring back the Emperor, but it's fine for Rey to save the galaxy. But, because it's space opera. It's a space Western. It's a samurai movie in space, whatever, right? Like, someone's going to save the day. It's not science fiction. It's just space opera. But this is like Star Trek's supposed to take a slightly more realistic, outside of the movies, let's say it that way.
Yeah.
Outside of the movies, it's, people generally don't save the galaxy in Star Trek.
Yeah.
They save bits of the galaxy or a planet or even a village on a planet. but they don't save everything.
Yeah. So the whole like Burnham centric, plot, we're now at episode, whatever this is, 6 now. Like they have just been reintegrated into the future Starfleet. And I mentioned this before. They've had their ship retrofitted and they give that about 10 seconds, show them playing around with the user interface and the warp nacelles being detached. But the crew, have they been integrated into the new Starfleet? And I mean, it's Starfleet in the future, 1,000 years. What has changed? What are the new, like, what are staff of other ships like? What are the other service members like? They throw me a bone. Like, tell me what the world is like in the future. Like, you brought me here. Tell me where I am and what's going on. But no, it's just like Michael Burnham adventures. Like, yeah, there's Orion Syndicate, but Michael Burnham's going to deal with them. Like, okay. Like, I wanted a conversation in the, the new mess hall on the main station where, the Discovery crew is, all sitting by themselves while the rest of the future Starfleet people are sitting on their tables. And then, somebody comes over and they try to have a conversation, but, they have nothing to talk about, or the person keeps asking them about the past, like something, anything to show them interacting with one another, but we get nothing. Like there are no people in this future Starfleet. So that was sad to me. Like, I don't know if you guys thought, like Alex, is this something that you felt was sort of missing, or you think is going to come in the future, or maybe it will never come?
Yeah, very much so. I think specifically, and I don't want to sound like this is my only note, but think about all the sex in 1,000 years. Like 1,000 years has gone by. There's got to be all kinds of new like all the new sex positions, new aliens that you've never had sex with, new drugs, new like I mean, imagine again, like we've used this example before, is like a clipper from the 1500s shows up and they're like, "Good day, how is the opium?" He's like, "Oh, dude, we have fentanyl now. It makes opium look, and also you should see what we do to people's butts now. Like it's great." Like, and I think like again, joking aside, the interaction with new aliens, with new cultures, with new what ifs, which is supposed to be the point of Star Trek, new what ifs,
new life and new civilizations. Nah,
exactly.
Space slavers, and we beat them up.
Slaves, and we blow their heads off. Has any of that ever been done before? Can you imagine the directors like, guys, has there ever been slavery in space? And everyone's like, no. We're trailblazers.
We invented
they've never. Has anyone ever had their head blown off in space? Like, nope. We're doing this first as well. And to your point, I think that there's not enough what ifs. There's not enough interesting new things to talk about. And I think that is at the end of the episode, what we should be talking about with each other on our Skype call is like, oh, isn't it interesting that this alien, can only see in infrared? Oh, well, yeah, that was interesting because then they did this thing where they needed somebody that could only see in infrared. Like, oh, great, like cool. But instead of that, we got slaves. This is not the first time slaves have been used to telegraph evil, like or scavenging or any of, because that's already happened in this very season. We've already had scavengers. We've already had Orion Syndicate, and so like it didn't feel like we moved a lot on the interesting, cool things.
Yeah.
Point.
Okay, so my next point, I'll go to the point in the episode. It's right here at about 2:38.
If time is of the essence.
No question, I could use 10 of you right now. But as my only rapid responder, I need you here.
Rapid responder? Sir.
Discovery has an experimental advanced drive system that enables us to respond instantaneously anywhere in the galaxy.
Okay, so they've had time to retrofit the entire Discovery, right? They built new interfaces. Plus, you have Adira Tall, who's built a new interface for the Spore Drive, which means she at least knows something of how it operates. Not only have they not retrofitted other ships with Spore drives, but Admiral Vance hasn't even told the other captains that this thing exists. How long have they been here for? What is going on? Right. Like, you're 1,000 years in the future. How can you not reverse engineer this old technology and put it on your new ships? And if you are working on it, then how close to his chest does this guy hold his cards? Like, the two captains who they show are in utter shock. They've never heard even an inkling of the fact that this old ship that appeared in their station can travel, instantaneously anywhere in their galaxy. Why is he told nobody? And if he hasn't told anybody, then is anybody working on retrofitting and reverse engineering? Like, what is happening? I don't understand what that scene is supposed to tell me.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think it was very strange to me from a military point of view. It does make sense that that he's keeping it very close. But the captains surely would have been told, like, we now have something that's going to change, our fighting with the Orion Syndicate. It's going to change us being able to do literally every job.
Yeah.
And like you said, the priority really should be integrating this technology. It shouldn't be doing anything else, nothing else. And not to belabor the burn stuff, but like the fact that Michael Burnham thinks that the burn is the correct thing to focus on, and everybody else agrees with you, Bert, that like, clearly we should get everybody able to move across the galaxy instantaneously all the time. I guess the only counterpoint to that from a military point of view is if they do lose the technology, they're very, very screwed. And so, like, I guess that's the only tiny counterpoint I could see is like, we're not going to send out the Discovery just because if somebody else gets it and then reverse engineers it faster than us, like if the Orion Syndicate gets the spore drive, like they go from being a dangerous crime syndicate to ruling the known universe.
Oh yeah, right? Yeah. But I mean, we sort of discussed this in the previous episode that this Starfleet cannot be evil, and they can't even be ambivalent. They have to be super principles oriented and faithful to their principles. And one of their principles has to stop them from just arresting everybody on Discovery, dismantling their ship, and interrogating them forever until they know exactly how the spore drive works, because of that exact reason. It's ridiculous to think that you would have possibly the greatest, weapon, instantaneous travel anywhere without the use of warp technology, which is unavailable to pretty much anybody in the galaxy without significant or incredible cost and risk. So everybody hypothetically who's using warp technology is at risk of their ship exploding if there's a burn 2.0, right? Yeah. And not only that, but it's far slower than using the spore drive. So how they could not put all of their effort and every single one of their, great minds in future Starfleet toward reverse engineering and retrofitting this technology, or not even reverse engineering, because they have Stamets, who is ostensibly still a Starfleet officer, who part of his duty is to tell them how it works. So they don't have to use the working spore drive and test it to determine how it operates and then try to build a new one. They can just build another one based on his original plans with his consulting. Why they're wasting time on anything else boggles my mind. Really, the next episode should have been 6 months later, all of their ships, or 3 of their ships, or their main fleet has been retrofitted with spore drives, and then where do we go from here? But instead, it's still Discovery, the only ship, and for some reason they still want to send them out on missions. Like, what if they get hit by a photon torpedo or whatever they have in the future, and it explodes? Even if nobody else gets the technology, then you don't have it. then you've basically lost the Excalibur because you didn't bother to figure out how it works. Like, that's asinine. It just, I don't know what's going on, and I don't know whether Admiral Vance is somehow evil or if he's just incompetent or what, but it's annoying. So one quick thing, this is around 40, 42, 45. And what's going on is Admiral Michael Burnham has returned to Discovery, and Saru is very disappointed with her young lady. And they've gone to speak to Admiral Vance, and they're walking into his office, his computer. So the shot that you get is a sort of establishing shot of them walking toward the camera, and his computers are on left and right with, some holographic screens that are up. And as they walk in,
your job is to follow orders, Captain.
The screens sort of flicker oddly and then turn off. And like that, it could be nothing. It could just be a stylistic thing to have these futuristic screens flicker oddly. But I thought that was strange. I thought, perhaps they're telegraphing that he, has his computer deactivated because he doesn't want anybody to know what's being said, or the computer is deactivating itself, as it, flickering is not a normal operating function of most user interfaces. It's a strange thing for your computer to do before it turns off, and unless flickering is in the future really cool or found to be advantageous. So it could just be nothing, a stylistic choice, but I wondered if that might be something. I don't know if you guys had any.
What if? Yeah, I have a theory now. What if sorry, and it just made me think about it with Admiral Vance. What if the Admiral wants this ship because it's like the key to like galactic dominance, right?
Mm-hmm.
To be able to be anywhere he wants, and that's the whole thing. What if they're in the mirror universe?
Yeah.
Mm.
And the reason I say this is because the dude with the glasses, who the implausibly bespeckled man,
Mm-hmm.
he's like, it fell like 1,000 years ago. Your Terran Empire's over.
Mm-hmm.
How do you know that?
Yeah.
Right? How do you know that the Terran Empire fell that long ago? Right? And the only thing that would be weird is that, like, then why does everyone know that there's a federation?
Yeah.
But maybe there was a federation after the Terran Empire fell, and that's the one that's fallen. And everyone's like, yeah, there used to be a federation. It's gone. Because suspiciously, everybody in the federation in the future is human.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Like they're like
Right?
one
the
or
only
two.
aliens were the
Yeah.
the aliens I have now. I think one of them is a former crew member of Discovery. I think that guy went over. He was one of their the ugly faced thing. I don't know. I'm just, the only reason I wonder, and their uniforms, the sort of like little gold bits and the red and the gold and that kind of military. It looks like sort of, it doesn't look Starfleety. It looks more military. I don't know. Maybe, like it would be stupid because they've like, no, everyone should be like, oh, I remember the Terran Empire, but and so they remember Starfleet. But it feels like something's going. And maybe that's why Philippa's kind of remember. I don't know. So maybe they're in a third universe.
Yeah.
Oh, let's hope that they're not in that new universe.
So like that actually is like sort of close to one of the theories that I had early on that I sort of gave up on, which was the Federation and Starfleet split. That the sort of civilian oversight and the military or exploration component sort of divided at some point and went their own way. And so the people that they came upon are the sort of military wing, but the somewhere off in the distance is the, non-military, civilian oversight being paramount sort of wing that would call themselves, the Federation, and these people would, I guess, call themselves Starfleet, and they're at odds because of some schism. But I don't think that that's going to be the plot that we're going to get this season, which is like this, whatever they come up with might be better, but I'm yet to figure out what it's going to be. And I hope it's not just let's go beat up some random Orion syndicate who, just a bunch of toughs, and we go and beat them up at their base, and then that's the end of the season, because that would be considering the stakes that this show has set previously, alternate universes, traveling into the future to save all life, beating up on some, space street toughs would be a little bit underwhelming at this point. So the next point that I wanted to discuss quickly is at 43:59. And this is just sort of a writing point. So this is after, Michael Burnham has been chewed out by Admiral Vance, and she admits to all the things that she did that were terrible. And he tells her something like, the only reason that we even have this conversation, or the only reason you're not in the brig, is because you saved lives on your little sort of jaunt. He's really upset with her, and she's really contrite, and she's supposed to know that, she's, I guess the penalty for what she's done could be another life imprisonment, and on top of the one that she already got and somehow has got out of. And then she says this.
Permission to speak.
And it better be the best thing I've ever heard.
For the last year, I have spent every single day searching for the source of the burn.
I know. It really is just such a strange. I mean, it's so strange. Her obsession is. I know they've tried to explain why she's so obsessed about it, but it comes across as zealotry. It's very weird. And I don't know. I don't know where they're going with this. I mean, I think they're clearly going to go as it is Star Trek Burnham, that she solves the burn this season and then saves the universe again.
Yeah.
I mean,
she's Buck Rogers.
Where we're going.
So this is, I could term this season, the sheer effing hubris, the series. This is a woman who just committed, dereliction of duty. She went away without leave. She took, Federation assets off base without telling anybody where she was going while she was on duty. And she's this first officer of the crown jewel of the Federation's fleet. She comes back and she throws herself at the mercy of her superiors, tells them why she did it, and she knows why she was wrong. And her admiral, who just reminded her that she should, be in the brig, she decides she was going to ask for permission to speak. And he says, this better be the best thing I've ever heard in my life. And you know what she tells him? I've been here for a year and I've been researching the burn every day. This man, you would imagine, like, we don't know exactly when the burn happened, but he was either a young boy or not even born when it happened. And it completely overturned the universe. He's a Starfleet admiral. He and everybody else who's alive and in Starfleet probably spend every day trying to figure out how the burn happened. They have scientists on it. They have, military people trying to figure out who could have done it. And Michael Burnham says, I've been thinking about this for a year, right? Like, how is that an important thing for you to say in this moment, Michael?
Right. And I mean, the worst part is that we all know that she's going to solve it because, I mean, Book is a slave so that he could get her a one data point that's going to help her solve it. Like, it's just, it is. And I agree that the hubris is frustrating. I think it's one of the things that makes her character cool when it's executed and written well. And in scenes like this, she just comes across as totally unbelievable.
Yeah.
Like, it just knocks me right out of the show.
Yeah. The other thing that I wanted to say about this was, the black box that she gets that gives her the information, which is, I guess, the reason, aside from saving Book from slavery for all of this, is it tells her that the burn had an origin point. So it started somewhere and it either expanded from there in all directions or moved along some vector. And so she thinks that, they can trace it back to its origin. The first thing I thought of was, how is nobody else in the universe figured this out in the 100 or whatever years that have passed since then, with technology that is 1,000 years more advanced than, and scientific knowledge is 1,000 years more advanced than anything that Michael Burnham has encountered. And she figured it out a day after getting this black box. Am I being too hard on the writers here, or like, is it as unbelievable as it seems?
Yes, you're not being too hard on the writers. I mean, this is one of those things where you think, like, it happened. I think they say, like, at least 100 years ago. You've got all the best minds in Starfleet. Like, you don't think that they're going to, like, figure out, like, what happened to what ship when, and, like, figure out that they can triangulate. Like, the first question anyone would ask themselves is, who caused this? Mm-hmm. How did this happen? Where did it come from? And you're going to research that. And the idea that she's the only person that can figure this out and everyone else is just sort of disinterested in it is dumb.
Yeah.
Yep.
All right.
Maybe next time.
So let's wrap it here.
All right.
All right.
Good night, kids.
Good night, guys.
Go to bed early.
If you wanna send us an email, it's 83infinitycast@gmail.com. That's number 3 infinitycast@gmail.com. Like and review us on YouTube. You'll be able to find our YouTube page if you go to our webpage on Anchor. That's anchor.fm/83infinity. That's anchor.fm/8 Thank you.
Get your pets spayed and neutered.
I like that.